Hey everyone, and welcome back to Office Hours here at the Professor's Kitchen, where I sit down in my office with my beverage of choice. And I do have a nice little glass of wine tonight because I'm treating myself, and also we're in the middle of a huge move. So I had to pack up all of my wine and ship it, and anything that was open, I was not allowed to ship. So I have to sip instead of ship this little bit of wine, but I'm not complaining because I have a wonderfully lovely, brilliant guest with me again here. And I cannot wait to chat with her about all of the wonderful things that she's been doing. I follow her on social media, and we pretty much are just social media friends, which is kind of weird sometimes. But in this case, it's the coolest kind of weird ever. It's
Yeah,
it's the
definitely.
coolest kind of weird ever. And she happens to live in one of my favorite places ever, one of my favorite places that I've ever lived in Texas. So I'm gonna read this off of my notes so I do not get your title wrong, because it's as we like to say here at the Professor's Kitchen, it is an evolution of a title. You're creating your own space, you're creating your own title. So I don't want to get anything wrong. This is Professor Krisler Bailey. She is professor and functional medicine health coach, which I don't even know what that is really. So I can't wait to talk to you about all this and find out exactly what that means. I know that you are currently a professor of sociology, but
Mhm.
where did you start in this whole journey to being who you define yourself as now?
Oh gosh, that it's a good thing you have some wine because it's gonna be a while, right? This is
Go
this
for
is
it.
quite the journey. So for my education, where I originally started was I was a biochemistry major. I was
Wow.
I know I was planning to be a doctor, specifically a pediatrician.
Awesome.
And so that's really where I thought that I was headed. And yeah, I went through my first 2 years of undergrad, did the biology, did the inorganic chemistry, did the physics, did the genetics, like did all of that. And I hit organic chemistry.
Hmm.
And once I hit organic chemistry, I was like, no, thank you, I'm out.
You are not the
Um,
only one. It's so funny that you said that because that's how I started too. And as
oh
soon
my
as they were
gosh.
like, oh, you have to take organic chemistry, I was like, thanks for the memories.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 semesters of that. I mean, I was good with calculus. I was good with genetics. I was good with physics. But when I had those 2 semesters of organic chemistry, I was like, mm-mm, no, we can go ahead and be done. But of course, at that point, I was 2 years in,
Yeah.
and my mama had said, "You have 4 years on our money." So I was like, "I'm
Yes.
already 2 years in. What do I do? How do I switch? How do I make these first 2 years work for me
Right.
and still get out in 4 years?" And so in high school, I had taken a semester of psych and a semester of soc, and I really was drawn to sociology. And I was like, you know what? That's what I'm going to major in. So I switched my major and I actually added a minor of community health.
Awesome.
And the last 2 years, although they were really, really hard because I had to pack in a whole lot of classes, I just loved my classes. I loved my professors. I loved the discussions. And little did I know that sociology has all these different kind of mini disciplines within.
Yeah.
And so, medical sociology or sociology of health and illness was what I actually took in school. I was
Okay.
like, wow, this is it. So I still had that draw to health. I still had that, like love of health and medicine and all of that. And so I could
Mm-hmm.
kind of bring that together with sociology and then pull that in with my minor of community health.
Yeah.
And that really was what I did for school for undergrad.
Wow, that is so impressive. And that's already showing so much growth as a person, even at that early stage where you're like, you know what, this is not for me. It takes a lot of like introspective, really looking deep at yourself and saying, like, this is not the right path for me. I really need
Yeah.
to get myself on the right path for me. And coming back from taking those 2 years, like, that's a lot of time. People don't realize, I don't think, when they start college, that 2 years goes by so quickly. And that
Hmm.
first 2 years, you're really only doing a lot of your prereqs, but it's a
Hmm.
lot. Like, it's a lot, it's a lot of work in the
Yep.
first 2 years. And for me, I know within that first 2 years, I had to declare a major. And that was
Yes.
when I was like, I don't think this whole science thing is going to work out for me too well. I'm a little nervous. But
Yeah.
it was also, there was a turning point, like you said, with there's one specific class you really enjoy, that one class. Sometimes you have to listen to that little voice in your head that's like, oh no,
Hmm.
I loved that. I really loved that.
Yep.
Because for me, it was English. I took a medical terminology class and I was like, I really love all these words. Like, I really think I love all these
Interesting.
words more than I love the application of them. And that for me was like it like a light bulb went off and I was like, I'm gonna be an English professor.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
Yeah.
great
That's
idea.
awesome.
It was a big moment for me because, like you said, my mom said the same thing. She was like, 4 years on my dime and that's it. So I really had to make a quick decision and a
Hmm.
big kind of what seemed like at the time like a life-changing decision. There was a whole lot of silence on the other end of the phone when I told my mom that I declared my major in English. She was like, that's not what I sent you to college. That's not what we agreed to. What? No,
Yeah.
no. But I think she got it and she definitely gets it now. She's seen the flexibility that I have, and you too. Like, so you graduated with your degree in
Hmm.
sociology with sort of an emphasis then it sounds like on medicine and healthcare already. So you're already
Hmm.
still interested in healthcare. And what did you do then after you graduated?
That's such an interesting question. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And because I didn't really know a lot of people who had sociology degrees. I didn't really know like what you could do with it. And,
Mhm.
you know, back in the olden days when I went to college, there wasn't like a career center.
Right.
There wasn't a group of people around to kind of help you figure that out. It was like
Mhm.
you go, you know what you're going to do, you major, you graduate, and then you go into that area. So
Yeah.
um, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I actually started applying for jobs in the area of sales.
Okay.
And specifically, pharmaceutical sales was where I was, applying for jobs. And interestingly enough, the job that I ended up in, though, was sales, but it was in consumer sales. I worked for a very large consumer sales company.
Okay.
And so I graduated, in May, and I started my job not long after that. And my very first day of work was a launch of a brand new product.
Oh,
So I flew to Florida for a national sales meeting. And that
wow.
was literally my first day of work, like walking into this big ballroom with all of these different people for this national sales meeting and this big launch that we were having, this product that was coming out. And so that's how I started off in the working world in terms
Wow.
of, after I graduated. So yeah, definitely very different than what I had expected. And it was quite the interesting introduction.
So how long did you last in that field before you then transitioned into something else?
Not long.
Oh,
Not long. I knew within a few months that that job was not for me.
okay.
I was like, this just doesn't feel right.
Mhm,
I didn't enjoy it.
mhm,
And, it was good money. I had great insurance and I had a company car and,
mm,
all the things that you would want to have when you are a brand new graduate.
right.
It was a big name company and it was a good job and, solid benefits and all these different things,
Mhm,
but it just wasn't right for me.
yeah.
And of course, at that point, I was like, well, what do I do? Because I was living on my own. I had moved to a new state. So my sister was about 45 minutes away. So that was good.
Oh, that's
But,
nice. Yeah.
my parents were, back at home, and
Yeah.
I didn't have any family or friends in the area except for my sister.
Mm,
And of course, she was married and had children and all that. So I couldn't
yeah.
really encroach on her. So I was like, I need to do something. So
Yeah.
I decided that, maybe going back to school and getting an advanced degree would really help me, in terms of, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do, maybe kind of extending my non real life adulthood time, but
Mhm,
also maybe giving me more um, of a view into what I really wanted to do, giving me more time to kind of experience different things and see what I wanted to do. And I love sociology. I knew that that was really something I enjoyed.
mhm.
So I started to apply to graduate programs. And by the next year, I had gotten into a graduate program in Texas,
Okay.
um, and um, and moved back. And I had actually, and I'll say that my when I was in college, I went to college in New York, and we were living in Connecticut at the time, and so
Mhm.
I had always wanted to come back to Texas, but I didn't really know how I would get there. And
Yeah.
graduate school offered me that path back to Texas.
Mm.
So, I applied to graduate schools all over the country, but really,
That was your heart. That was your
UNT,
first choice.
yeah, so UNT has a good sociology department.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it will bring me back to my home state where I really wanted to be.
Right.
So yeah, so I only worked that job for a year and was in graduate school the next year, after that. And so I, considered double majoring in sociology and health promotion. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
I don't know, but crazy.
That's
And
ambitious. It's just really ambitious.
and I did really well. I mean, I completed my 2 years of my master's for
Mhm.
sociology, and I actually took health promotion classes as well.
Okay.
And I continued a year after that in school. Um, but I didn't actually finish and graduate with that degree, but I took about, I don't know, 12 hours of classes, 12 to 18
Okay.
hours of classes in that degree. So I did get some, good academic time and
Yeah.
so forth. So again, that sociology health thing was there. It
Yeah.
was very much present for me, at that time for grad school.
That's incredible. Yeah, double majoring in grad school, I feel like is just way ambitious. I know
Nuts.
plenty of people who have done it and plenty of people who get one master's degree and are like, that wasn't enough. I think I'm going to get a second master's degree. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you don't want to just get a PhD in this one thing? Get like a second or third
Might as
master's
well.
degree. I
Yeah.
mean, and it's the funniest thing saying it out loud now because one of the teachers that inspired me and kind of took me under her wing when I was in high school had like multiple master's degrees, and we were all like, you can't like merge those into, can you
Right.
say that you're a doctor of something just by getting multiple master's degrees or something? Or yeah, I feel like if you double major, they should just give you a PhD
Right.
just for the effort. that's that's
Yeah.
incredible. So did you even think then at that point that you would teach with your master's, or what did you think, what was your plan then for after you finished your finished grad school?
I had actually sworn off teaching forever and ever and ever. So never say never. This is the moral of the story. Never say never, y'all, because there have
Never.
been so many times where I said I will never, and now I'm like,
I did that thing,
okay,
didn't
you
I?
know what?
Yeah.
Um, it was kind of getting to the end of my grad school time,
Hmm.
and of course, again, I'm like, what am I going to do with my life?
Right.
And a classmate actually suggested that I look into being an adjunct professor just to
Okay.
kind of, make a little money and then give myself some time to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, sure, I'll try it. So I applied to some different places and I got this is crazy. So it was the fall semester and I got a call from a college, a 2-year college that was almost, I would say it was about an hour and 15 minutes south of where I lived. So
Okay.
it was a hike, but I was like,
Yeah.
I'm Poe, so I need the money. And they were offering, she said, the dean called and said, I'd like you to come for an interview. So I was like, all
Hmm.
right. So I went down for the interview. She literally handed me the books for the class and said, here's your books. The class starts on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even sociology.
Oh, what
It
was
was,
it?
yeah, it was developmental reading and writing.
Because that's where the need is.
That's where the need was.
Yeah.
And so she
And
was
they
like,
need a
here you go.
body in the
Here's the
classroom.
books. And I was like, oh, okay, let's do
Yeah.
this.
Hmm.
But I will tell you that honestly, that was the best experience for me to start out because I had no idea. Let me back up for a second. So I grew up in a very middle class home,
Hmm.
and yes, black family, definitely lots of disadvantages or whatever.
Hmm.
However, my parents were very much advocates of education.
Okay.
My sister, my mom, and my dad all have master's degrees.
Wow.
So very well educated, accomplished people,
Hmm.
very supportive in terms of getting education to be able to move up in life.
Right.
Anytime I had issues in school, anytime I needed help with my math homework, my dad was there. Like I had tons of support. And so I never really realized that there were people, you know, 18, 19, 20 year olds who were at the point where they were basically functionally illiterate.
Yeah.
So this experience of teaching developmental reading and developmental writing really humbled me to
Mm.
realize, one, I lived a pretty good life
Yeah.
in terms of my education and the support that way. But two, um, I had gone into being a professor with a very different expectation, and
Hmm.
it kind of knocked me down a few pegs.
Yeah.
And it offered me the opportunity to realize that there are students with a lot of needs
Yes.
that just so many times go unrealized, that
They
just
do.
go kind of pushed under the carpet. And so that was really my introduction to being a professor that semester. I was teaching students basic vocabulary. I was teaching
Hmm.
them basic grammar stuff. I was teaching them how to write a paragraph with a thesis sentence and
Right.
all these different things. So, while it was definitely baptism by fire, hello, just go for it and do your thing. Um, it was a really good experience. So by the
Yeah.
next semester, when I started teaching sociology classes and even teaching orientation, which was like the, first
Yeah.
year college experience, I had a much better grasp on what really needed to be taught and how it needed to be taught and things like that. So that's really how my teaching career got started.
That's probably the best way that you could have started though. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember doing something very similar because I started as an adjunct as well at a community college first and then at a Chicago City college.
Mm,
And there was even a huge difference between those two demographics. I mean, just,
yeah.
the demographics of each school were vastly, vastly different than one another. And I didn't expect that. I think I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, so I had no concept of what inner city schools, you only hear about it on the news. You
Yeah.
don't really,
Yeah.
until you experience it for yourself, you don't really have a true concept of what that means, like what the education really, like what they actually learned in
Mm-hmm.
school until, yeah, you walk into what you think. For me, I was offered a developmental class and then didn't end up teaching it. But even with the first year classes that I did teach, I was amazed that the, like you said, the thesis statement, something as simple as creating an introduction, creating a thesis statement, the
Yeah.
grammar, which I didn't think that I would have to look into very much, as I
Yeah.
assumed. And I think that when you do grow up like that and you do assume a whole lot, and it's hard not to, and it definitely takes you down a peg. You
Yeah.
just don't realize it. And I actually had a student write it in one of my evaluations that they thought that I had taught the class like it was a grad school course. And I was like,
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
I? Did I do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was floored. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I didn't do that on purpose, but now I definitely need to make sure that I'm not doing that again. Like
Yeah.
I don't need to do that again. Don't let me do that again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, you're constantly adjusting, not dumbing it down or anything like that necessarily, because they still have to have the same outcome. Of course, you still have to get them to that level so that they can move on and
Mm-hmm.
take other courses and stuff. But it was really, really eye-opening. So I would love for every professor to get that experience when they first start teaching. I think it's priceless, uh, uh, on like additional education basically for you as a professor
Mm-hmm.
to learn from that experience. It's completely invaluable. And I loved it. Loved it, hated it.
Yeah.
It was it was
Yeah.
it was a love-hate relationship, but it
Yep.
was definitely worth it. Totally, totally worth it. So now that you had this whole baptism by fire, and where would you say that you are now? Because I know that you're taking these additional classes because
Yeah.
you're clearly dedicated to lifelong learning, which again, Professor's Kitchen all day long. We love that here. Continuing education all day long. We love that here. What are you
Mm-hmm.
doing now? And what do you plan on doing in the future?
So now I am also a functional medicine health coach. And the classes that I'm taking are through the Functional Medicine Coaching Academy. They specifically teach you all of the principles of health coaching
Okay.
from a functional medicine perspective. And, you know, personally, I have been on a health journey for about 5 years.
Okay.
When I left my full time teaching job, so eventually, I did teach for as an adjunct for a long time, but eventually I did get a full time teaching job, and I was there for about 9 years.
Okay.
But when I left that position, um, I was very much kind of up in the air
Mm.
because for years I
Hmm.
had been known, even as a part-timer, I had been known as a professor. That was my title.
Right.
That was how people knew me. But when I left that job, um, there was a lot of it was really difficult. There was a lot of unhealthiness in the last few years. I knew it was time to leave,
Hmm.
but it was still hard. You still have difficulties with that.
Right.
Um, But also, I had two small children.
Mm,
And so I was a mom of young children. I had just left a full-time job where I was very much invested. Like there was a lot going on.
mhm.
And of course, my doctor had been saying, well, you're getting up in age, so you need to be taking multivitamins and all this stuff. So
Rude.
just with all of that together, I just started kind of down this journey of health. And it started with me partnering with a network marketing company that is really focused on gut health and using supplementation to
Okay.
help people improve their health status.
Okay.
And the first year in, I wasn't really all into it, but I wasn't all into it in terms of the business side, but I was all into it in terms of my personal health. And I
Okay.
started to notice just things changing.
Mhm.
And it wasn't anything huge. I didn't have a diagnosis that I was trying to battle or anything like that, but it was just, I could see things just slowly getting better as time went on. The next year, my husband and I actually did with a group of people from this company, we did a 3-day bone broth cleanse and transitioned into eating the keto lifestyle,
Oh,
that type of thing. So during that, again, it was like just learning my body, hearing, thinking about what was happening and recognizing changes. My husband actually over several months lost 30 pounds,
wow.
and he's kept it off since. And there was just a lot of things going on with just like learning about health. And then I started following doctors on social media, and I started reaching out and asking questions. Just
Yeah.
these different things that were kind of slowly dropping. It was like little by little things were
Mhm.
happening, and I was connecting with people and asking questions. And I hear about functional medicine, so I'm learning about that and connecting with doctors and asking questions. And this whole time, still trying to figure out career wise,
Right.
what am I going to do? You
Yeah.
know, what is this whole thing going to look like? I
Mhm.
became an adjunct professor again in that time, and because that's what I knew. That's what I know,
Yeah.
I'm good at it. But this time it was at a university. I'd always been at 2-year schools before.
Okay.
This was at a university. And so it was definitely a different climate, a different group of people. It's a private, smaller size university, so that was also
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
And I was adjuncting at a public, large university with a different population. So I was like, these
Mhm.
y'all are just so different. So there's just
So
a
different.
lot. Yeah, I mean, it was totally different. So but there was just a lot going on, and
Mhm.
I was just kind of wrestling with, do I stay in higher education where I'm comfortable? Do I
Right.
move on to this area that I feel like I'm being pulled towards, I'm being called towards in
Mhm.
terms of health? But what do I do? Like I was applying for jobs in public health departments and epidemiology jobs and all of these different things, and nobody was hiring me. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling this tug. I
Right.
I know I feel like this is the direction I'm supposed to go, but how am I supposed to get there?
Yeah.
There was a whole lot of prayer. There was a whole lot of crying. There was a
Oh,
whole lot of asking people questions. I mean, it really has been several years of this, just trying to figure out what's happening. Um, but I finally connected. I finally reached out to this doctor that I had been following and kind of built a relationship with. And I said, hey, I'm thinking about health coaching. You talk a lot about it, in your practice, because she's a
mhm.
functional medicine doctor. And I said, can you recommend some health coaching programs that, I can look into? And
Okay.
she did. And I ended up choosing the one, that I'm in right now.
Mhm.
Um, and when I decided to start this program, it was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And
Yeah.
my husband was supportive.
Mhm.
Not everybody was supportive, but that's okay. They don't have to be. It's my calling, not theirs.
Right?
But
Right.
I was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. And I mean, I went through all the things. Like I thought I was gonna go back to school and do the graduate school thing, because that's what you do, right? You want more
Yeah.
education, you go to graduate school. And so
Yeah.
I found this amazing program and I studied for the GMAT, and
Oh,
and Lord, I took it. And oh
oh,
Jesus, like it was something special.
it
But
is.
again, there was
Oh.
never that complete peace about it.
Mhm.
But when I found this functional medicine health coaching program, it was like, okay,
This
I
is
have
it.
peace about this. This is what
Yeah.
I need to do. This is the direction I need to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how the pieces kind of fall together and stuff like that. And especially when you know what you want to do, like you said, you know what you want to do. And
Yeah.
for me, it's been the pursuit of the PhD is just has eluded, like it just can't quite get into a program, can't quite get
Yeah.
into the right program. I never quite know exactly which direction I'm going to. And for English, like with sociology, there's so many different niches and just kind of smaller tracks that you can go into and focus on different things, that it makes it really difficult, especially when you are like me, like kind of scatterbrained and interested in a whole lot of different things. But when
Yeah.
you do have those individual classes that you can take and still
Mhm.
make progress towards something that you're interested in, I think we definitely need to start removing that stigma that you have to get into this program. You have to have
Mhm.
a degree in this thing in order to be good at it.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like with a master's degree, you are able to exhibit that you have a mastery of a topic, of a subject,
Right.
and you have that thing that you can put on your wall that says that you've mastered it, and it's framed and fancy and whatever. But that's not always the be all to end all, and that doesn't
Mhm.
always make us happy at the end of the day either.
Yeah.
And it's not always practical with everything else that you have going on. Like you said, like as a mom, you're a working mom, you have other responsibilities. Sometimes getting back into a graduate program is not really necessarily the way to go, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't still pursue your dream and still
Mhm.
work towards your goal. And yeah, there's so many different avenues now, especially with community colleges having so many different paths and tracks and different things that you can do for a certificate. I ran into this one student at graduation. Someone introduced me to him, and he apparently just goes back to school and gets random associate's degrees and stuff. Like he's retired, and
Yeah.
now he just goes and takes classes towards an associate's degree and then shows up at graduation as like, and again, and he has a very supportive spouse. His wife is always there at his graduations, and she's
That's
like,
awesome.
"Yay, baby! Yay, you graduated again. We're gonna be back here next year. You're
Right.
gonna graduate again with a different associate's degree." But something as simple as, like, if that's what makes you happy,
Mhm.
then why not do that thing that makes you happy? There's really no harm in it. And as long
Right.
as you're not wasting boatloads of money on something that's, just frivolous, I think that why not just go for it? Why
Yep.
not? They're LinkedIn classes now. They're all sorts of different certificate programs. They're like free programs that you can do, these master classes that they advertise everywhere.
Yep.
If I wanted to I would never quit my job to do cake decorating or anything like that necessarily, but if I wanted to add that on to my
Yeah.
resume and do cake decorating tomorrow, then yeah, I could do that, and it would
Yeah.
probably be a lot of fun, and I would be able to still pursue something that I'm passionate about. Not that I'm passionate about cake decorating, but I am really bad at it, actually.
Yeah.
Really, really bad at it. And I would
Now
one
cake
day like to
eating,
take
I
a
could do
class.
that.
I'm a master cake eater, but cake decorator, not
Mm-mm.
so much. They look really ugly. They taste delicious. That's
Mm-hmm.
my thing. That's what I do. But yeah, if I wanted to, and I was really passionate about it, I can do it. And I think that that's, again, that's the beauty of online teaching for sure these days.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of community colleges and the beauty of all of these different paths that we have now, especially online. I think, many, many, many different opportunities have presented themselves, like you said, through social media. You can start following someone, connect with them relatively easily, and have them be sort of a mentor for you too,
Mm-hmm.
and guide you in the right direction, and also tell you what you shouldn't do, which is super helpful too. Like, I did this wrong, don't
Mm-hmm.
do it this way, do it this way instead, and it'll be easier and better for you and make you happier in the long run to do it
Yeah.
this way instead. So all of that is super important, and super important, I think, for our students to know too, that they can definitely look to us as role models of going on the straight and narrow, but then also pursuing other interests as well. That,
Yeah.
again, the most interesting grown-ups that I know have gone in several different directions at some point
Yep.
in their lives, and have discovered all of the things that make them happy, and not just that one thing for 20 plus years of,
Yes.
that just, and then burnout happens after doing something, that one thing, for such a long time too. So my last question for you will be about that work-life balance. So you do have a family, you do have a career, you're also studying, and will probably very soon be an expert in many, many different fields. Not that you aren't already, but you'll also be a functional medicine coach in addition to everything else. So what does work-life balance really look like for you then? How do you get in your me time in addition to everything else?
So I am a schedule person.
Okay.
I love it. I love a schedule. I love my calendar. I schedule in everything,
Okay.
because, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist.
Nope.
I say that all the time whenever, like, I'm at the dentist. I take the kids to the dentist and they're like,
Hmm.
okay, would you like to schedule, 6 months out? And I'm like, okay.
Yes.
And we set up the date. And then
Yes.
they're like, would you like the little reminder card? And I'm like, nope, it's in my
Nope.
calendar,
Got
because if it's not in my
it.
calendar, it doesn't exist.
Right.
So that is a huge, huge, huge thing for me.
Hmm.
I do several things. Um, I use my calendar, absolutely. I get my family involved.
Okay.
Um, my kids right now are 10 and 8,
Okay.
and they help out. They don't do a ton, but they help out,
Yeah.
and from the time that my oldest son was probably about 3, I guess,
Okay.
I started doing small things to get him, being a little bit independent. So,
Mm.
one of the things I started doing was I got one of those soft shoe racks and I hung it over the pantry door,
Okay.
and I put snacks like down at the bottom of the,
Oh.
of the pantry,
Hmm.
of the shoe rack. Excuse me. And I would, fill it with snacks and things like that. So, like, in the mornings, he could go and get his little breakfast cookies or whatever.
Yeah.
And he could bring them to me and say, Mommy, I'm hungry. I'm ready to eat. And then that just kind of started that practice for us of my kids like doing things on their own. And so now, for example, tonight, it's a Thursday night, and they, every Thursday, we sort our laundry, and my kids bring their laundry baskets down. They sort their laundry. We get all of our laundry sorted, and then Friday, mom does laundry, and I put it in their baskets, and they take it back up and they put it in their room and they put it away. So, just starting to get them involved in,
Yeah.
I think it helps them in terms of responsibility, but it also helps me because I don't have to do every single thing, every single step. It
Right.
takes a little bit off my plate. And the bigger they get, the more responsibility they have. But I
Yeah.
started them, relatively young ages doing small
Mhm.
things that were age appropriate so
Right.
that, little by little they built up. Um, my spouse, this has been kind of a difficult thing for me in terms of getting him involved and how to really navigate that.
Okay.
I have been very independent. I grew
Mhm.
up as an independent woman.
Yeah.
My parents, yes, they worked together and I saw them work together, but my mom always had a job. She actually worked a full-time job and a part-time job for most of my life.
Wow.
Um, so, I saw my parents work and I saw my mom in her independence, and
Mhm.
so I was very independent, and I didn't get married until I was 31. So,
Okay.
I was later in life, whatever. But I had lived that long, and so it was a new thing to navigate, to have to ask for help
Yeah.
and have to tell my husband I need this or I'm struggling with this,
Right.
when I would get overwhelmed or when just work was piling up, or I need you to put the boys to bed tonight, or I need you to give them
Yeah.
their bath tonight. Can you help me out? Like that was a big pill for me to swallow.
Yeah.
But that also helps so much for me to be able to, he puts the kids to bed or whatever, he does the dishes and I can go take a bath,
Oh,
and I can like relax and
yes.
like breathe, and just go, okay. And now it's become so ingrained in our routine that when I shut my door, like the boys will knock and he'll be like, no, 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 it's mom's time.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it took a while for that to, because they would walk right in. I'd be like, I'm in the bed. Can you, you know,
Give me a
but
minute. Give me a minute.
yeah, because kids, they don't have
They
any
have
privacy.
no shame. They will just
Mm-mm.
right through the
Yep.
door,
Let
just
me
like the
in.
Kool-Aid man, just like,
Yes.
hey.
Yes. Um, but something else I did too with my students to create a boundary with my students was in my syllabus.
Mhm.
I specifically tell them, 24 hours for a response
Yeah.
for an email, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I also tell them that Sundays, if they email me on a Sunday, they will not hear back from me. And I specifically tell them in class on the first day that I do this because I believe that I need a rest day. I
Yeah.
fully embrace the Sabbath, I fully embrace the rest day.
Yes.
And I tell them like I need a day off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're not going to hear from me on a Sunday. I love you. I do. I love my job. I do.
Yes.
But you know what? This day is set aside specifically for my family, for
Mhm.
myself, for my sanity.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I've really started, just setting those boundaries and being
Yeah.
very clear and upfront so that students can't say, well, she didn't respond to me. No, 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 no. You knew.
You
It's in the
knew.
syllabus. Like
Yes.
we're not playing here.
No.
So yeah.
Oh my gosh. I know quite a few professors that do that. And I definitely think that it's something, I don't know how I've managed to get through this long without doing it. I definitely need
Yeah.
to do it because yeah, like you said, if you don't say it up front, they will definitely look for this response and get
Mm-hmm.
very angry when you don't respond. And it's like,
Yep.
no, I too need a day off. It's really
Yeah.
important for me to also, you as a student definitely want me to have my sanity when I
Yeah.
respond to this email because you don't want the crazy professor
Right.
that I was, you know, Friday after I finished up that last meeting and grading papers and stuff. You don't want that response. You want
Right.
the calm, chill, I just had a bath bomb and a glass of water, a glass of
Yes,
wine response. Or I got a good night's rest and it's Monday and I'm ready to get back to the grind. That kind of
exactly.
response. Yeah, that's so important. That is so, so important. But you definitely have to. And we know that students, at least mine, still to this day, after many years of teaching, they work on Sunday nights. That is when they do the majority of their work is Sunday, unless you have, I mean, my deadlines are always set for Mondays. So it's probably my fault that they're doing that, but they work right up until the deadline. And
Yeah.
most professors, I think, especially with like online classes, the
Yeah.
deadlines are like Sunday night or
See,
Monday.
I always made mine Saturday night
Oh,
because
oh,
I'm like, if you work on Sunday, you're on your own.
yeah.
So let's just go ahead and make it Saturday. And that way we don't have to worry about technical issues or
Mhm.
whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Too many of us, I think, have that Sunday night deadline. So for sure, they're
Yeah.
like right up until the wire. They're like 11:59 point.
Yes.
You're like, okay, yeah, you got it in.
Oh,
Credit.
gosh. Bless them.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting today during office hours in the professor's kitchen. You can all catch this episode on anywhere you get your podcasts, so on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. This will also, the video of this episode will appear on the Professor's Kitchen YouTube channel. I will link all of that in the description box in the YouTube and in the show notes on Spotify, so you can check that out as well. And I will include any links that Professor Bailey would like me to include so that you can find her and learn more about functional medicine from her. And maybe she'll be your coach one of these days
Yeah.
too, your functional medicine coach, an expert on lots of different things. Thank you so, so much for joining me today, and I will see you online.